On this review, let's take a look at the Rowkin Ascent Charge Plus and the Rowkin Pace. So I've been reviewing quite a few different true wireless earbuds, and in the comments a couple of times people have been asking me about this company called Rowkin, which frankly I hadn't heard of before, but it got my interest when people were asking me about them. And it also got my interest in that they claim to be the smallest earbuds. They're not claiming to have the smallest package overall like the charging cases, but they're claiming that the individual buds that fit into your ears are the smallest, at least as far as, what do they call it? The smallest sport earbuds. What makes a sport earbud? I don't know, but we are gonna find out if these things are any good. So let's go ahead and open them up. We'll find out what's inside the box of the Pace and the Ascent Charge Plus. And then I'll do a little bit of comparison between them so that you know the differences, and also compare them to some other wireless buds that I've got. So look, these things are not cheap. The Pace is around 80 bucks on Amazon right now, and the Ascent Charge Plus is around 120 bucks on Amazon. So these things, they're not cheap. These things are, I would say, competing with AirPods in terms of like price range. And so my expectations for these things are gonna be, these things better be pretty good. Let's go and open up, we'll find out if they are. All right, that was not a great spin, but for my first dual synchronized spin, maybe not that bad. All right, so we got the Rowkin Ascent Charge Plus and the Rowkin Pace sitting here in a couple of boxes, and we'll do a quick tour to see what we can find out that's different between them. Let's see, let's start with the Ascent Charge Plus. They claim to be the smallest sport earbuds. And again, I don't know what sport earbuds means, right? If you look over here, these look a little bit smaller than these, but maybe these aren't sport. They do claim 50 hours of music and talk time, that's pretty massive for true wireless buds like that. That said, do keep in mind that's counting like extra charges that you get with the case. You're not gonna get 50 hours out of just these buds. At least I'm pretty sure you're not. Dual purpose charging. I assume what that means is that you can charge this case, or you can use this case as a charger for your phone, I'm guessing. And then they have a feature that's Find My Earbuds with an app. I don't know what that's about, but that's something we're gonna find out. Another feature that these things claim that these do not is key wireless charging. Over here in the Pace, let's see, we've got dynamic sound quality, 3.5 hours of music talk time, which I think is probably a more realistic claim, right? These things all claim 3 full charges, so what's 3.5 times 3? 9, 11, 9, 10 and a half, around 11 hours of battery life on these versus 50 hours on these. They claim effortless playback controls, but that is a claim that we're gonna have to dig into. Around here in the back, you can tell a big difference between these headphones is that the Ascent Charge is made for being outdoors in the snow, while the Pace is meant for doing parkour. Again, up here we get the claim of key wireless charging. The battery life, that's basically the same. USB-C plus dual purpose charging doubles as a power bank. So yes, as I suspected from the front, this thing, it's got a big old battery packed into it. That's how you get the 50 hours of music and talk time. But if you don't want to use all that battery power just for your earbuds, it sounds like you can share that with your phone. Over here, okay, this is again, basically the same. This is like a little bit more compact size. You can definitely see that's gonna be another big difference, right? Is that the Ascent Charge is prioritizing battery life and that sort of convenience over something like the Pace, which is made for parkour, so you need it to be nice and compact. And they do also claim to have Bluetooth 5.0. Interestingly, over here, they don't make any claims about what kind of Bluetooth they use. So let's go ahead and open them up and find out what's inside. Hold on. All right, so we got the Rowkin Pace and the Ascent Charge Plus completely unboxed, and this is what you get inside either box. Let's start with the Pace. You get a little cute, adorable micro USB charging cable, as well as a caution statement. Be careful. Like a lot of buds like these, you get some replacement ear tips in either large, medium, or small sizes, and as is typical, the mediums are pre-installed. Looking at these things are, look at how dinky tiny those things are. And these things seem to be made out of metal too. They feel pretty nice, frankly. The one thing that actually kind of stands out is that these nozzles are a little big. These things are a little bit chunky. We'll see how they fit, but just calling it out right now, these nozzles are a little chunkier than what you'll typically see on an in-ear headphone like this. The charging case that you get is, I think, pretty handsome. I'm like, look at this action. It's got this nice in-out action. And interestingly, the buds go into it top and bottom, which is just kind of clever. I don't know, this thing, frankly, look at that little package right there. I think that's a pretty convenient shape. This is gonna fit in and out of a pocket pretty easily. And if you're out there doing parkour, I don't think this is gonna get in the way. That said, if you put it on a table, it's gonna just start rolling wherever it wants to go. And then we get over here to the Ascent Charge Plus, and worth calling out that this is a more expensive package. I already talked about it. This is around $80. This is around $120, but I think the one that I've got is actually around $140, and I'll tell you why. First of all, you get the same caution statement. I think it's the same. It's safety information. Again, be careful. But here you get USB-C to USB-C. And then they also come with a USB-C to USB-A adapter, depending on what you're gonna plug this thing into, right? And that's kind of interesting. The big difference here with the Ascent Charge Plus, at least the one that I've got, is that it also comes with a key charger, which frankly, I didn't expect, but looking on Amazon, it looks like they sell a model with and without the charger, and it's an extra 20 bucks if you wanna have it include the charger. Like the Pace, you do get 3 sets of ear tips, including large, medium, and smalls. Unlike the Pace, the Charge ear nozzles actually seem pretty traditionally sized. These are definitely smaller. And I have a feeling that's gonna play some impact in the way that these things fit, but the overall shape of the buds is so different that it might be irrelevant. The buds here are, again, they're pretty nicely made. They appear to be made out of metal, and they've got this interesting rubber gasket around the outside that I have a feeling is gonna help with fit. That said, it doesn't seem to be stuck on there super tight, so we'll see if that ends up being a problem or not. Like the Pace, you do get a charging case, but this charging case is beefy. This thing is actually pretty heavy. It appears to be made out of some sort of metal. And then up here, you've got a USB-C port, as well as an actual leather little ring. I'm giving it the smell test. I'm pretty sure that's actual real leather, which frankly, leather is a rarity on this channel. Actual real leather, good job. So yeah, we've got these things completely unboxed. This is what you get, 140 bucks, 80 bucks. You can get these things for 120 bucks without this charger, but which one should you get? Should you get either of them? So that's what I'm gonna find out. So I'm gonna go and spend some time with these things, comparing them directly to each other, but also comparing them to other true wireless buds that I've got, and see how these things stack up. All right, I've been listening to the Rowkin Ascent, which we've got here, as well as the Rowkin Pace, which I've got sitting over there. Comparing them to some other true wireless buds, but also comparing them directly to each other and trying to figure out like what kind of person are these things for, if anybody. And right off the bat, the biggest difference between these two is the form factor. So I've got the Ascent here in my hands right now because I think it looks the coolest, but I actually prefer the form factor of the Pace just because it's a nice, smaller, more portable, more convenient package. And for me, true wireless buds are all about that convenient portability. If portable and convenience don't necessarily matter for you, if like maybe your primary use case for these is in an office, or maybe you're wearing a purse or a fanny pack or something where you don't need a really small charging case, then either of these can work out for you. But frankly, if you do want a really nice small portable charging case, neither of them is especially great. So here we've got the Ascent, and you can see that the case is fairly large. Now, with that large size, you do get a large battery. And that means that you can charge these things up and listen to them multiple times throughout a week. Like you could go multiple weeks between charges with the Ascent. And that might be important for you if you just don't like fiddling with cables, or you just don't like worrying about having to charge your headphones very often. Or maybe you're going on like a long vacation and you're just not gonna be near a wall outlet to be able to charge a device. I think that does make the Ascent Charge kind of uniquely functional. Just for my personal use, I don't need something that lasts that long. For me, the bigger issue with the build of either of these headphones is not so much the size of the cases, as much as it is just kind of like how fiddly it is to get the earphones in and out of the case. And this is down to, I think, 2 reasons. One, well, maybe 3 reasons. I don't know. It's just a coalescence of a couple of small things that add up to a little bit more fiddly interaction than I'm used to with true wireless buds. So, 1, the buds are quite small, and that's actually, I think, an advantage of these things when you're wearing them. But when you're handling them and putting them back in the case, because they're so small and because the cases just are a little bit cluttered, at least your entry into the case is a little bit cluttered, it can be a little bit difficult to put them in. That little bit of fiddliness is especially bad with the Rowkin Pace. It's not so bad here with the Ascent, but my other issue is an issue with both of them, and it's that the buds are essentially, they're very symmetrical, and it's basically impossible to tell apart the left and the right buds unless you look very carefully on the bud. And so that just means when you're putting it away, you gotta be careful that you're always putting left and right back into the same spot so that when you take them out, you can put them into your ears and not have to worry about it. And now that's important, not just because, most people want to have their left and right correct when they're, listening to music. I'm not actually that picky about it, but it's more important because the tap functionality that you get with these things, you get, different controls depending on which ear you tap. So if you accidentally get the left and right buds mixed up in your ears and you want to pause the music on the Ascent, you're going to end up accidentally skipping a track, which is, it's not what you want. And it's just kind of a clumsy experience, in my opinion, compared to something like, the Apple AirPods, where it's very clear which one is supposed to go in which ear. And you don't have to guess. You don't have to guess, and it's never a problem. With these, it's just something, it's a little extra something that you gotta worry about. So I mentioned that the small size of the buds is actually one of the selling points of this, and it definitely is. These things are nice and small buds, especially the Rowkin Pace buds. Very comfortable to wear all day, and in my experience, they stayed put. If you're doing, some pretty active activities, they might be an issue because there's not, they don't fill up your ear, and they don't have any hooks or anything to hold them in place. But generally I found them to fit pretty securely. If you tug up on your ear like this when you put it in, your ear will kind of close around it and hold it in place pretty well. So for me, pretty secure. In fact, they're so small that people around me didn't know I was necessarily wearing them. There were a number of times my wife came up behind me and was having conversations with me that I couldn't hear because I had the buds in and she didn't know. So that's just kind of a testament to how small these are. And if that's something that you're interested in, they do a good job of that. The Bluetooth performance on either the Ascent or the Pace, pretty decent, but with some caveats. So the general, when you take them out of the case, they will automatically pair up with your phone. When you put them back in the case, they'll automatically power themselves off. All that stuff was, in my experience, perfectly reliable, which is not always the case with true wireless buds, so they're doing that pretty good. I did also find that the Bluetooth range on these was pretty strong. Not incredible, but definitely better than most. So I was able to leave these things here in the studio and walk around the house, and I had to get 20, 25 feet away before they started to break up. So generally pretty strong. The one issue I do have with the connectivity is not so much with the Bluetooth range, but it's actually with the connection between the two buds. And this was especially true with the Rowkin Pace. Having them in my ears, sometimes like even just like passing my hand in front of one of them would be enough to break up the connection between them. They just seem like the connection between them is a little bit sensitive. And if you go onto Rowkin's website, they've got some steps to help you fix it. In fact, when I first paired them, they were not just a little bit unstable. They were incredibly unstable. Like I couldn't listen to them. So I went on their website, followed some steps, got them to be a little bit more stable, but there's just still a little bit fragile, the connection between them. To illustrate just kind of how fragile that connection is, one of the suggestions that Rowkin has on their website is that when you have them in your ear is to make sure that they're pointed in the same direction. And now, that's especially an issue with the Rowkin Pace because they're completely symmetrical, just straight up cylinders. And there's no real way to tell, apart from the button on them, there's no real way to tell them that they're fitting, you know, slightly turned one way or the other. You can figure it out, but just again, like that's just kind of an illustration of how fragile that connection is between them. And that is, in my opinion, kind of a significant issue with these two headphones, and especially with the Pace. Where these two headphones start to make up for it is, I think, in the sound quality. And I'll just say this, I think the sound quality on both the Ascent and the Pace is pretty strong. There's pretty good bass, pretty good treble, and it's a nice sharp V sound. If you're sensitive to treble, you might actually have an issue with these things. I like a lot of treble in my music, and these things do a pretty good job of it. It is a little bit sharp and even at times sibilant, and it's especially a little bit sibilant with the Pace. I think that the Pace, maybe because they're the smaller buds, they have a little bit more emphasis on the treble, whereas these have a little bit more emphasis on the bass. And the general sound signature between them is very similar. It's just a very consumery, V-shaped sound signature, but I think these things do have a little bit more bass if you're into that, while the Pace has got a little bit more treble and a little bit more upper mid-range. That said, very interestingly, both of these can connect to the Rowkin app, and that app gives you access to a number of EQ modes that you can flip these things into. And those EQ modes, in my experience, actually change the sound quite a bit. So you can tune the sound to your preferences. Unfortunately, you don't get to be able to manually pick, you can't manually adjust the EQ however you want. You got to pick from a number of presets, and in my experience, the presets didn't quite do what I was looking for. I would like to bring down the bass on these things and maybe give it a little bit more upper mid-range, but none of the EQs really do that. You just kind of have to pick one that gets the closest to your sound preference. So if I were to rate the Rowkin Ascent and the Rowkin Pace, look, I'd give them both the same score. I think these are both like 3-star headphones. I think the sound quality is really the selling point of both of these headphones, and especially of the Rowkin Ascent, just because most people really like bass, and these things got a ton of rumbly sub bass. The battery life of this might also be a pretty strong selling point for a lot of people, but for me, I'm just not super excited about the form factor of it. I think they're a little bit large and bulky for my use case, and then just because it's a little bit fiddly to put these things back in the case and make sure you got them in the right ear and make sure they're pointed exactly the same direction so that your connection is not dropping. That little fiddliness and that, it makes them just feel a little bit jankier than some other buds, right? So you got something like the Dudios Air, which are my favorite budget true wireless buds, much cheaper than these. For me, I just want the convenience and a small package. So I still prefer Apple AirPods, I still prefer Apple AirPod knockoffs, and I still prefer the Dudios Air. But if small convenient package isn't important for you and you just like a lot of treble and a lot of bass, you might actually really like the Rowkin Pace or the Rowkin Ascent. If you're interested in checking out either of these headphones, of course, I've got links in the description down below. While you're down there, you can hit the like button for the video if you liked it. You can subscribe to the channel, and then I'll see you in the next super review.